Good to see you. Oh, no, I'm not allowed to.
Talk to the Premier. Lovely.
Keep that a secret.
Yeah, it's your special.
Mr. Carr, you say expect a big day.
Okay, is everyone smiling? Excellent.
You've read 5 books this year.
Very impressive.
That's very good. 20, and you're only 5. Every time I go to a school, there's a real buzz. You're a very good speaker. The youngsters are reading as never before. That's a good reading.
Very good.
I count the improvement to state education, our improved basics, and the vocational subjects in the school system, the great literacy standards, as up there as the proudest single achievement.
Who is it? Me. You're very good.
I didn't do that well at school until the last year or so. Gilbert was not an ordinary cat. As a kid, I had a billy cart and had lots of crashes coming down steep hills. We had a good place to grow up in because there was a lot of bush around Matraville at that time. There were the beaches, and I would not have been described as a good scholar at school until perhaps my last couple of years. I know that book. Well, I'm very impressed. You're the champion reader in New South Wales for your age. You're the champion reader. No, I'm sorry. I thought sorry.
Well done.
Never try to flatter an age 5 reader. You won't succeed. I said, you're the champion reader in the school. She said, I know that. I was inspired by the things I heard from my train driver father over the dining room table. And then I read a few books about aspects of Australian history, inspired by stories of Ben Chifley, the Labor Prime Minister. I thought, look, I want to be in that business. I want to be a Labor Member of Parliament. And at 15, I went down to the local branch of the Labor Party and told them I wanted to join up.
He's a self-made man in the sense that he is a complete construction. There is almost nothing today that's authentic about Carr as he was when he was a boy, when he was a teenager.
See the promotion I'm getting you?
He is a creation of the self. He taught himself not just to be an astute politician, but a reader, to be a raconteur, to be this kind of quasi-intellectual.
Bob Carr was the new leader.
I took on the leadership of the Labor Party like a man walking towards his execution. I thought this would doom me. There's no way I'm going to win after 1 term. No way the party's going to hold on to me for 2 terms. I know what happens to opposition leaders in these circumstances. They just get seen as interim figures, stopgap leaders.
As productions go, the opposition leader's entrance rivalled an election campaign launch. But Bob Carr has the more daunting task of getting Labor back on the rails.
Bob Carr has proven himself to be the Labor Party's master politician, in the sense that at every election he has contested since 1991, he has improved the Labor primary vote.
With great humility, I can report to my party today, mission accomplished.
I suppose when I became Premier, I won against the odds. People didn't expect me to win. I think it's fear of failure that drives any human being on. I did not want to lose, not just for myself, but for the party that had invested in me as its leader. I was terrified of letting the Labor Party down. And I suppose in that sense, I'm like John Howard. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
There are comparisons between me and John Howard that are valid. We led our party from opposition, and people did not see us as likely long-term political leaders. He's been in power nearly as long as I have been.
What he sees in John Howard is a pretty ordinary, regular bloke, and he sits there thinking, well, I could have done that. I could have done that. But a little part of him worries. He's so terrified of what he sees as the shame of defeat that he would never take on John Howard. Well, I think he still has a lot of self-doubt to the extent that he was reluctant to take on the Federal Labor Party leadership when it was offered to him in 2003, and it was offered to him on a plate.
Gee, I think if I'd gone into federal politics, as I was once so focused on doing, I might have looked at most some years as a minister, I hope a senior minister, in the last days of the Hawke-Keating government. and then all the years in opposition. If I'd performed well as a minister, I might have been a chance as a party leader, but I honestly don't think I would have led the Labor Party to victory at the last federal election. I think the tide was running too strongly for John Howard. Ian, how are you? Yeah, good to see you.
I think he is seriously envious of John Howard because all of the interests that Bob Carr has in politics have tended to be global interests. Even today as Premier of New South Wales, the things that obsess him, global warming, the population challenge, are all things that are national, if not international issues.
I suppose for moments you envy the opportunities available to a Prime Minister, the opportunity, for example, of moving after the tsunami and saying, how much can we afford to give the Indonesians? Let's err on the side of generosity. Let's mobilise $1 billion. I think he deserves absolute credit for that. And I envy him the opportunity of making decisions like that in Australia's interest, because my instincts would have been absolutely the same as his.
Now, 10 years later, Bob Carr and Labor are very tired. Hospitals in crisis, trains in crisis.
He's a skilled politician, very clever politician. I just think he's a pretty lousy Premier.
All right, I will. John Brogden said the other day you'd been killing people, that the legacy of 10 years of Carr government was often fatal.
All I get from the state opposition is negativity.
The people you've belted, and not the double babes, St Ives said, I'm getting emails from Cronulla and Penrith and Gosford, people who'd built up what they hoped was a nest egg for their retirement, and you've kicked them in the guts.
We have to pay our nurses, our teachers, our police vastly more than they do in other states. No, I'm talking about...
This is like Dancing with the Stars. You're gliding off to the edge of the bandstand.
I'm explaining to you.
Carr's got enormous charm. Carr's got very good media skills. He knows how to do the quick soundbite. So I'm saying to you, we'll fix the police. You know, that's a soundbite, and he does them. Where other politicians waffle, Carr knows how to handle. He's very clever. Bob Carr's the best Premier I've seen in this state, which is not to say he's perfect. He's made a mess of quite a lot of things like transport and hospitals and so on. But he's the brightest, smartest, most intellectually gifted Premier we've seen.
And he has taken $376 million.
I wouldn't use the language successful applied to my own career. Look, I guess in terms of the 15-year-old from a working class background, a fibro house, going to a state school, I'm successful because I achieved the preposterous goal I set myself, and that was to be a leader on the Labor side of politics.
Premier, can you guarantee that you'll be leading the party to the 2007 election?
Now listen, all the forces of nature and heaven, and the forces that rule the universe, not intervening in a drastic way. I will run as Premier in 2007. I don't want to die in the job, but I want to stick at the job for some time to come.